Most women across the globe rely on birth control methods as means of proper family planning, thus preventing unwanted pregnancies. In a country like Sierra Leone, where access to birth control measure and adequate information on the use of contraceptives is limited, many women and young girls are faced with the problem of unwanted pregnancies. With unwanted pregnancies comes the option of abortion. But what happens in a situation where abortion is considered illegal and there are no policies in place ensuring women have access to safe abortion services? It is no secret that in a scenario like this, young women are forced to practice unsafe abortion by getting rid of their pregnancies through the back door. Sierra Leone is one of the countries where abortion is criminalized. Both the Offenses Against the Persons Act of 1861 and the Pharmacy and Drugs Act of 2001 contain provision that restricts the procurement of an abortion.
In actual fact, abortion is unlawful and is regarded as a felony for which the penalty is life. We already have the Maputo Protocol that we are signed. Unfortunately, we haven't domesticated it to include some of the provisions that we give, such as sexual reproductive health rights to women and girls generally. So I would love to have a situation where, as a government, once we've signed these international treaties, we try to domesticate them as best as possible, and we look at the prevailing circumstances. It is quite clear there's a high rate of teenage pregnancy. It's quite clear there's a high rate of sexually transmitted diseases. It's quite clear that we're one of the countries with the highest rate of maternal mortality rates. We have to be able to pass laws that will tackle some of these things.
The WHO defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Reproductive health addresses the reproductive processes and functions of all individuals, and a proper reproductive health system is therefore important in any society for people to be able to reproduce and have the freedom to decide if, when, and how often to do so. Unsafe abortion is one leading cause of death in the world today. In Sierra Leone, unsafe abortion and teenage pregnancies are two of the key drivers of maternal mortality and morbidity. According to the country's Demographic and Health Survey 2013, by the age of 19 years, 51% of adolescent girls have given birth and 60% have begun childbearing. The birth rate for 15 to 19 years old girls is 125 per 1,000.
Over the past 2 years that I've been here, we've been getting, especially students that are pregnant during, especially when we have our school holidays. That's adolescence age. That's 13 to 17. That's the age that you'll have them getting pregnant. And some of them, when we go on outreaches, we find out that they come for the contraceptive because they've been told that when you give them contraceptive and they are pregnant, they will lose the pregnancy, which is false. But that's why most of them will come forward for it.
The absence of a legislation in Sierra Leone to protect and promote reproductive health services, including family planning and access to safe abortion services, is therefore aggravating the maternal death situation in the country. Meet Aruna, who had lost two loved ones to unsafe abortion. First, it was his sister, and then his fiancée. Losing both his sister and fiancé has been the worst ordeal he has ever had to cope with. Haruna's story is not unique to him alone. It is very common in Sierra Leone, where 80% of the population either knows someone who has had cause to procure an unsafe abortion or died from it. Ipso facto, many women, particularly young girls, turn to quack doctors for the removal of unwanted pregnancies to avoid stigmatization and in respect to the health care they can afford.
We know that young girls as teenagers, some of them are pregnant and they're afraid. So what do? They seek abortion services from untrained people. We call them backstreet abortionists. And as a result, what happens is that they use either unsterilized equipment or they use methods that are not proper. And so as a result, some of these girls lose their lives. Other unsafe means could be apart from going to backstreet abortionists. There are some girls who take concussion, they take drugs. Maybe their friends will take them to take certain herbal concussion. Sometimes we hear that girls will mix blue and some other herbs. And as a result, what happens? They have upset. Sometimes they even collapse. But then still, sometimes they might not. Sometimes the pregnancy is still retained. So they have to seek proper care.
Sometimes, for fear that they might lose their lives in the process of doing backdoor abortions, teenagers are forced to keep their pregnancies, but at what expense?
Mostly like for teenagers, like adolescent mothers, because they are still in a developing process. Their system is not well prepared for them to give birth. At the end of the day, they will end up having fistula. The baby might die and they will have fistula because they are not well developed for them to give birth. Fistula is an abnormal opening on either the bladder or the rectum of a woman that goes into labor. As a result of that, you start to have an unexplainable leaking of either stool or urine. Since last year, we've had over 200 surgeries, and in that figure, we have over 40 to 50 teenagers that have been affected by this condition.
The Journal of Women's Healthcare reported that in 2011, the Ministry of Health and Sanitation spent over 200,000 United States dollars on post-abortion care. Half of this cost could have been used to provide safe abortion care in hospitals. The government is under its international legal obligations in treaties and agreements such as the Maputo Protocol and Maputo Plan of Action to ensure that women have access to safe medical abortion in instances of sexual assault, rape, incest, the threats to the mental or physical health of the mothers, and the risk to the life and health of the mother and or the fetus. In 2015, the government of Sierra Leone came close to legalizing safe abortion by the passing of a safe abortion bill in parliament. But what really happened?
The bill went through parliament. It went through the first reading by the minister at the time, and the second reading and the third reading. At that time, the bill is ready to be signed into law. The bill passed on the floor of parliament, and it was sent to the president for his assent. A presidential assent is not automatic. The president notified the House within 14 days. Rumors outside, or along the corridors of power had it that the president probably was influenced by, religious council, religious leaders in the country that were against the law and against the bill. So they were able to plead with him and also to prevail on his conscience to prevent the bill from passing.
Even though subsection 8 of section 106 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone empowers Parliament to enact a law that the President refused to sign, the Parliament at the time refused to endorse the law. Many factors were responsible for this. However, all is not lost, as Honorable Umfa asserted.
Well, this is a new Parliament, it's a new government, and we hope that members in this Parliament will do similarly, which is passing the bill into law, and we are hoping that this president will sign it into law.
Many women faced with unwanted pregnancies are likely to seek an induced abortion, irrespective of legal conditions. countries with more permissive laws and policies on accessing safe abortion services, including Zambia, Ghana, South Africa, and Tunisia, among many others, have demonstrated that access to safe abortion and post-abortion care reduced maternal mortality. Religious leaders and other social commentators vehemently opposed the idea of legislating abortion. This was largely responsible for Ernest Bai Koruma's refusal to give his assent to the law. But the perceptions are changing, as Muslim cleric Alhaji Mustafa Kowa indicates.
If this may hang, astagfirullah, don't hurt. If this sickness don't hold on, if you are not caught this in the past now, this time for quarter, so that you not go continue. If the person don't take belly, that belly is a risk for in your life, and a small picky force is in belly. So if before then the two life well, let one well, the other one left will be there before.
The Christians are equally concerned about the reproductive health of women and the right of women to take care of unintended pregnancies.
So sometimes we have to look at things critically, and maybe the reason why the religious body we are opposed to that first bill that was passed, it was because it was blatantly stated safe abortion. You know, maybe the word abortion seems to have a negative connotation on the aspect of the religious bodies. Even as a man of God, as a minister, I'm not saying, abortion is God agree with abortion. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, we have to look at abortion from a perspective of the health and wellness of the individual carrying the pregnancy.
From emotional to ethical, political to religious, the reasons abound why people support or oppose abortion. Civil society activists, such as People's Alliance for Reproductive Health Advocacy (PAHA), say they will ceaselessly advocate the enactment of laws that will enable women determine what happens to their bodies.
We worked with the Ministry of Health and Sanitation. We were supporting 25 sites. And what we discovered is there were a lot of women who were accessing unsafe services. And then when the complications start, they will come to these sites in the Ministry of Health facilities for treatment and care. Some of the complications were excessive bleeding. Most of them were excessive bleeding and so forth. And so they will come to these sites for treatment and care to stop the excessive bleeding and to treat whatever complications they had experienced from unsafe abortion. As an organization, our main priority is to reform the laws and policy around reproductive health. And as a country, Sierra Leone has passed and ratified the Maputo Protocol, which was done in 2015 with no reservations. And the Maputo Protocol states that as a state, we should provide reproductive health services and information, but also safe abortion safe abortion for people who have been raped, for women and girls who have been raped, but for women and girls who have also suffered through incest, and are pregnant. So this law actually needs to be domesticated. This treaty needs to be domesticated, and it hasn't been domesticated yet in Sierra Leone. So we are advocating for a lot of these policies and laws to be developed and passed in Sierra Leone.
Haruna's sister and fiancé would have lived longer if they had been able to access safe abortion services at government clinics or by other qualified healthcare providers. He hopes to launch a campaign to legalize safe abortion. In their New Direction manifesto, the SLPP-led government of Sierra Leone promised to design and launch a national program on adolescent and sexual and reproductive health. It is in the interest of the Parliament to enact the Safe Reproductive Health and Services Act, which includes access to safe abortion services in keeping with the government's plan of action and the country's commitment to honoring the Maputo Protocol ratified by the Sierra Leone Parliament. Such an enactment will lead to the development of policies that will guarantee access to reproductive health services for all. Until that is done, the country will continue to lose precious souls through unsafe methods to terminate unwanted pregnancies.